Yeah.
Let's talk about something I know you've been into, Senator. That's it's called SAPA. Explain what that would mean to a regular, just a guy in West Plains that maybe is going to a gun store, watching this on YouTube. What does SAPA actually mean, and what would it do?
So the Second Amendment Protection Act, and what this does is this says that if there are some federal rules that get pushed down or executive orders from the feds, that our state authorities, our state police, sheriffs our tax dollars that pay for their salaries is not going to go to them helping the feds. So if Biden pushes down an order, red flag order, or whatever, our state paid officers are not going to be helping those federal officers practice those laws.
What if they do? What if they're on the drug task force, like in SEMO, and what if they do it? What happens?
Well, I mean, in the drug task force, they're just going. First of all, they're going to have to. Right now, like bump stock, I think is the only thing that's different between the federal and Missouri law. So right now, they're just going to have to not help with confiscating bump stock.
Okay. Senator, I've always wondered this. What happens if they do?
Well, I will say apologies if I've ruined many of your shots by checking my phone. I actually have an amendment pending on this bill right now. And it's no surprise that this is a priority of the supermajority, that they want to make it known that they support the Second Amendment.
Do you think anybody wonders? No. I think they might.
They won't after this bill, but I think it's unconstitutional. I think I've heard from law enforcement who have concerns over their ability to enforce laws and work with the feds, and I'm hopeful that my amendment gets added, and then we're ensuring bad guys don't get guns.
I want to ask you about that in a second, but what happens if the cops infest us? What happens if they take someone's bump stock? Do they get sued?
At this point, I think the voters of Jefferson County spoke very clearly how they feel about Second Amendment rights and protecting our Second Amendment rights. I'm a co-sponsor of SAPA. I believe in it, and I will always defend our Second Amendment rights no matter what.
All right, Greg, I'm going to try you. So Republicans ran on, don't defund the police. We're pro-cops. Come January, they come up with an idea, well, let's just sue the cops. I think some of the cops are a little bit whiplashed. What happens if the folks at Atlanta, what if the Macon County Sheriff confiscates a bump stock? What happens?
Well, I think you have some sheriffs that want this to pass and have asked their county commissions to do this. I've never seen an issue at Macon County Lincoln Days where Republicans are coming up to their legislator and they know the difference between a third read on a bill and a perfection vote on a bill, and it's all about this gun rights issue. I mean, they are locked in on it. I think Democrats, to be honest with you, think that it'll be thrown out by the courts anyway, so let's just let it pass. And I think Republicans know the grassroots are going to hold them very accountable if they don't get this done.
I think there's Democrats that are fine with Republicans voting to sue a cop. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
And you have an amendment on this bill that I want to ask that if she gets up and leaves, it's because she's got this amendment up. But tell me what this amendment. This is an interesting part of this. This seems like common sense people come together to prove a point. Whatever, if you need to prove a point that you love guns, you can prove a point with this. But also with this, you've got a way to maybe fix something that was unintended from a past session.
Yeah, based on some legislation we passed a few years ago, it's difficult to ensure that people who are convicted of domestic violence, it's difficult to make sure that they don't have access to firearms. So my amendment would help keep women in those situations safe by making it unlawful for someone who's been convicted of domestic violence from accessing a gun.
And that comes from an old law that maybe, at the time I thought folks were saying publicly they would fix this later. Well, later hasn't come until maybe your amendment, right?
Right, so I think it's now been 6 or 7 years where people have talked about this, recognized that it's a problem, and I'm hopeful that we'll fix it today.
Now you can be the old grizzled veteran that says, yeah, I've been around here so long that this was it.
I'm on a panel with all-stars, so I feel like I really need to get something accomplished this year.